There's a website somebody just sent me a link to. It's popular information at Substack, not Subway, but Substack.com. Never heard of it. Popular information at Substack.com. And the work at Popular Information, Bloomberg reported that Popular Information's work has started a political reckoning in corporate America. But what I have in front of me here is entitled The Next Insurrection, and it came to me at 6 o'clock this morning. So what they're talking about here is accountability journalism. And this piece, The Next Insurrection, is written by two people, Judd Legum, whose name I do know, and Tesnim Zakaria, whose name I don't know. But I want to share with you what they wrote. And again, the website is popularinformation at substack.com. And they write that the January 6th siege of the U.S. Capitol was not an isolated incident. It is the latest in a series of attacks by violent extremists seeking to undermine federal and state governments. And now a new organization called People's Rights seeks to bring more sophistication and efficiency to these efforts. And it's already having considerable success. Now, let me digress. By People's Rights, this is more newspeak. They have no fucking interest whatsoever in the rights of people. This is a Christian Nazi organization, but as usual, borrowing from George Orwell and Newspeak and the corruption of language and the Nazis, they are turning language on its ass. People's Rights. Well, the leader of People's Rights, and by the way, it was founded last March, just about a year ago, is Ammon Bundy. You remember him? He was the so-called leader of the 2016 occupation at the Malloy National Wildlife Refuge in Oregon. That was a deadly 41-day standoff between federal agents and these right-wing fuckers who rejected the federal government's authority over public lands across the West. What they wanted, Bundy and his sick fucking old man, what they wanted was the right to do anything they wanted on public land. And that public land shouldn't exist. It should be in private hands. Nazism. So Bundy and his heavily armed associates, quoting from this piece now, seized that refuge to protect the conviction of two Oregon ranchers, Dwight and Steve Hammond, who were, quote, sentenced to prison for setting fires on federal lands, end quote. Bundy demanded, quote, that the government relinquish ownership of the refuge and free the Hammonds, end quote. The laws of the land can go fuck themselves, is what Bundy was saying. Now, the standoff ended when Bundy was arrested at a traffic stop outside the refuge. He was tried in October 2016 on federal weapons and conspiracy charges, but was acquitted by a jury. And there's another flashing yellow light. Back to the piece at this website, Popular Information. In 2018, Trump gave Bundy what he wanted, pardoning the Hammonds and releasing them from federal prison. A statement from the Trump White House said, quote, the Hammonds are devoted family men, respected contributors to their local community, and have widespread support from their neighbors, local law enforcement, and farmers and ranchers across the West, end quote. Now, Bundy's new organization, remember, what's it called? People's Rights, is even more ambitious. That organization wants to enable people to, quote, call a militia like they call an Uber and stage a protest armed within minutes, end quote. Bundy claims that People's Rights has 50,000 members in 35 states. And according to Bundy, they have a goal, and the goal is to be able to, quote, dispatch 10 protesters to a scene in 10 minutes, 100 in 100 minutes, and 1,000 in 1,000 minutes, end quote. Oh, Christ. Now, Bundy didn't go to D.C. on December 6th. I would imagine, like a lot of these people who lead from behind, these masses of fascist son of a bitches, they're cowards. The leaders are cowards. They hide, like Trump. But Bundy did his followers to go. In a video posted at the end of December, Bundy said he wanted to, quote, express his support for what is happening in Washington on January 6th, end quote. Bundy called it, quote, an opportunity to stand for a constitutional republic, end quote. He also viewed that event as a recruiting opportunity for people's rights. He told members traveling to D.C. to, quote, spread the word and download banners from the People's Rights website to take with them. Bundy concluded, don't wear a mask, stand for freedom, end quote. Jennifer Rocala, who runs the Center for Western Priorities, called Bundy's 2016 occupation of the wildlife refuge, quote, a dress rehearsal, end quote, for the January 6th siege in Washington. She said in a statement today, quote, the extremist ideologies and tactics that led to the violent occupation of public lands in Oregon are the same ideologies that President Trump has stoked among his supporters, end quote. Bundy and this misnamed People's Rights organization have also engaged in more recent violent activities that mirror what happened on January 6th. In August, for example, Bundy and other members of this Nazi group used force to enter a closed portion of the Idaho Capitol. Quote, House Minority Leader Ilana Rubel was in her office on Monday when she heard a deafening sound. She ran out to see dozens of protesters charging into the gallery overlooking the floor of the House of Representatives, a group of protesters that she said included Bundy. The gallery had been cordoned off, Ms. Rubel said, to allow state lawmakers to remain socially distanced rather than have members gather in large groups on the House floor. But now the protesters had broken down the gallery door, ripped up signs, pulled down the rope that was meant to reserve distanced seats for legislators. She said, quote, guards were charged, the gallery was overrun, end quote. Bundy was there to protest a special session to address the coronavirus pandemic. For fuck's sake. This organization that this scumsucker heads, People's Rights, has successfully used opposition to public health measures as a recruiting tool. Just unfucking real. Being told to wear a mask to save your own life and the life of people you may come in contact with has now become an instrument for recruiting Nazis, Christian fascists. We are in an enormous asylum. Now do you understand why I don't see that path anymore? This is fucking insane. In October, this is under leveraging the pandemic. In October, the Institute for Research and Education on Human Rights reported that this organization, People's Rights, put together by Ammon Bundy, this neo-Nazi organization, had, quote, 20,000 members in 16 states, end quote. And by January, Bundy told the LA Times that his organization had 50,000 members in 35 states. And Bundy has been able to grow this neo-Nazi organization by tapping into anger about measures put in place by public health and then ordered by the government to combat this pandemic. This is the part that is just so fucking insane to me that I can't. I find myself gasping for breath when I read articles like this. It's just obscene. Now, the first event that this misnamed organization, People's Rights, was held last March, and it was to defy the Idaho governor, Brad Little's stay-at-home order. Bundy led an Easter service. See what I mean about the Christian fascist fuckers? An Easter service for about 60 people. And he has subsequently grown the group by featuring, quote, aggressive, belligerent noncompliance with the COVID-19 health directives, end quote. Have you ever heard of anything like this? Now, I know that the church, the Christian church in the Dark Ages, used the various pandemics that would sweep across Europe as recruiting tools for their fucked up Christianity. The Black Plague or flu epidemics or whatever the disease was that would sweep across these European populations. Well, the Christian fascists, the priests, the monks, they were just waiting for shit like that so they could leap out of the fucking darkness and tell people that God was destroying them because they were evil. Evil? People back then, it took all their energy, from what I've read, just to find something to fucking eat or a place to live. But the church was so willing to label sick people as being sick and dying because they were evil. And Ammon Bundy personifies that. It's the same thing. Aggressive, belligerent noncompliance with the COVID-19 health directives. No, don't follow what public health is saying. Follow me. I'll tell you what to do. Don't wear a mask. Breathe in each other's faces. The government is trying to take away your freedom. What the? Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.